Hello and welcome. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in the Russian city of Vladivostok for a 36-hour visit. Modi began his trip with a visit to a shipbuilding yard with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The plant is being set up to produce vessels including icebreakers, oil tankers, heavy tonnage ships. The ships built in the plant in Russia's Far East will deliver Russian oil and LNG to India as well as other countries in the future. The Indian Prime Minister is set to hold bilateral talks with the Russian President at 11:30 a.m. India time. This is the 20th annual bilateral meeting between India and Russia. This visit is also significant as this is the third time the two leaders are meeting this year. They met last in the month of June on the sidelines of the SCO summit in Bishkek and the G20 summit in June. Now, Modi has been invited as the chief guest for the Eastern Economic Forum. The economic forum that is being held from the 4th to the 6th of September will focus on cooperation and investment. The conference is designed to promote foreign investment in Russia's Far East. India believes that the forum will help boost its Indo-Pacific engagement. It will also help both nations meet their energy needs. Now, multiple business agreements are expected to be signed during Modi's visit. It includes MOUs for export of coking coal and cooperation in mining sector. A 5-year roadmap will be announced on hydrocarbon cooperation both in terms of purchase and exploration. The two leaders are also planning to attend a judo championship. A 6-member Indian team is already in Vladivostok to take part in the championship. Modi's day one in Vladivostok will conclude with a dinner that will be hosted by President Vladimir Putin. Now, India has set up its own pavilion called the India Lounge at the Eastern Economic Forum with the support of the Ross Congress Foundation. The lounge will serve as a platform to demonstrate investment opportunities in the Far East, promote Indian investments in the region, and attract Russian investors to the growing economy of India. Our political editor Karthikeya Sharma caught up with FICCI President Sandeep Samani for more on this. Listen in.
Can you tell us about India Lounge, the concept and the purpose?
So the idea of the India Lounge is basically to, have a place of residence for India in this large economic conference. Also to invite our Russian friends and partners. As you may be aware, this has been a hugely successful second trip. I was here a few weeks ago with the Honorable Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyalji. At that time, we had over 160 delegates coming in from India to assess different points and different industries across this area. We are again back now for the Far Eastern Economic Summit, and there are 61 businessmen who have already come into Russia.
India-Russia relationship has moved from state enterprises now to private players. So can we say that the transition is taking place, from public sector enterprises to private players, entrepreneurs from both sides?
It's I would say there has been significant progress. The two states will always be very close to each other. So to give you an example, during the visit of Modi ji, 30 MOUs will be signed between India and Russia. 14 are from the government sector, PSUs, and 16 are actually from the private sector. So that answers your question to an extent, that the private sector participation in Russia, Indian participation is growing, and this is a good sign, of things to come in the future.
And lastly, diamond, tea, these are the areas where Indian participation is pretty much visible in Russian Far East. But when we talk about hydrocarbon, oil and other energy reserves, do you think more needs to be done in terms of private players?
Yeah, so I think the government has deep relations in terms of ONGC having good relations here and having economic interests in oil and gas fields. I think the private sector is also looking at Russia. Russia is today the largest producer of oil in the world, and it's a very significant producer of gas.
And let's get you some more live visuals from Vladivostok, where Prime Minister Modi is interacting with President Putin at a shipbuilding yard in the city. Remember, Prime Minister Modi is on a 36-hour visit to Vladivostok for the Eastern Economic Forum and the 20th Annual India-Russia Summit. He reached Vladivostok a few hours ago and began his visit by visiting a shipbuilding yard in Vladivostok. Now, as we stay on these visuals, these are live visuals coming to you from Vladivostok in Russia. I want to talk a bit about India-Russia ties at the same time. Now, traditionally, Russia has been a time-tested friend of India in terms of civil, nuclear energy and defense cooperation, but of late, Russia too is seeking to diversify its portfolio, especially in Russia's Far East, and looking beyond its Eastern Asian partners, namely China, Japan and South Korea, to countries such as India and other countries in the region. From India's perspective, India would like to diversify its relationship beyond civil, nuclear energy and defense to other areas such as information technology and manpower. And towards the end of the 20th Annual India-Russia Summit, you can expect MOUs to be signed in the areas of energy and defense. This is the 5th edition of the Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok, and we are standing by also for the 20th Annual India-Russia Summit. Now, Prime Minister Modi and President Putin have met 3 times already this year, and they'll be meeting again for the annual summit in a few hours from now. All right, just to bring our viewers up to speed with what is happening in Vladivostok as we speak, these are the live visuals coming to you from the Indian state broadcaster Doordarshan, where Prime Minister Modi and President Putin are jointly visiting a shipbuilding yard in Vladivostok, which is the venue of the 5th edition of Eastern Economic Forum, which will also see the 2 leaders participate in the 20th Annual India-Russia Summit. Now, Vladivostok, just for our viewers, is in Russia's Far East. It is actually on the Asian continent, very close to North Korea and Japan, as well as South Korea. And India will be looking to boost its trade investment opportunities in Vladivostok to take advantage of the new situation obtaining in the wider Indo-Pacific region. Traditionally, India and Russia meet annually for the annual summit, and this time it is India's turn to visit Russia, and therefore we are seeing Prime Minister Modi attending the Vladivostok Economic Forum to also participate in the 20th Annual India-Russia Summit. Right, you're watching the continuous coverage here on WION World is One of Prime Minister Modi's visit to Vladivostok in Russia for the Eastern Economic Forum and the Russia-India Annual Summit. We'll get you all the latest from our correspondent on the ground in Vladivostok, Karthikeya Sharma, momentarily. But for a moment, these are the live visuals coming to you from the shipbuilding yard called Zvezda in Vladivostok, where the 2 leaders are visiting as we speak. And just to bring our viewers up to speed with all that's happening in Vladivostok, Prime Minister Modi reached Vladivostok a few hours ago and began his visit by visiting the shipbuilding yard at Zvezda in Vladivostok along with President Vladimir Putin. Remember, he's on a 36-hour visit to Vladivostok in Russia's Far East for the Eastern Economic Forum and the 20th Annual India-Russia Summit. All right, you're watching the comprehensive coverage here on Beyond World is One of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Vladivostok in Russia's Far East. And these are the latest visuals coming to you from Vladivostok, where Prime Minister Modi began his visit by traveling to a shipbuilding yard in the city.